Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. My name's Dan Hoyle. I sit with employer branding at LinkedIn, and it is my extreme honor to be welcoming Stephen Lochhead from the Expedia Group to stage. It's obviously amazing to be in person again, to have gotten on planes and staying in hotels and traveling to the great Los Angeles area. That was not the case in 2020, and Stephen, leading global talent at Expedia Group, is going to talk to us about how they kind of weathered the storm and really dug down and did a little bit of soul searching, I would say, in moving forward and showing us the pathway there. At the end of Stephen's delivery here, on either side of the stage, there are microphones for Q&A. We ask that you just kind of lean in, don't need to take the mic with you, and we'll do as much of Q&A as we can following his presentation. And with that, please welcome Stephen to the stage.
Well, thank you very much, Dan. That's a very warm welcome, and I really appreciate the chance to be in front of all of you to tell our Expedia Group story. It's a real honor, actually. Hands in the air, quick activity after lunch. Who saw Glennon Doyle yesterday? Wasn't she absolutely amazing? The one thing I would say is that Glennon gave a quote from Desmond Tutu, and I thought at the time, so am I. And it goes something like this. As we start to think a little bit about where we were, and Dan has alluded to this, at the height of the pandemic, I do want to take you on a bit of a journey around what that felt like for Expedia Group, and certainly what it felt like around trying to navigate through it, and where we all are now on the upside as we start thinking about travel really having come back. And Desmond Tutu, one of the best archbishops of our day and social thinkers, said the following. He said that a time of crisis is all about just a time of anxiety and worry, but it also gives a really interesting chance and an opportunity to choose well or to choose badly. And I don't know about you, when you were in your company going through the pandemic, I'm sure there were a number of things that you did or you said that you'd love to have just that chance to rewind and maybe do something differently with. Or equally a chance to reflect and think, you know what, we absolutely got that right. Either way, it was a crucible moment for all of us, wasn't it? And I think as far as we're concerned, in the travel industry, the pandemic had a massive impact. And I want to share with you a little bit about just the extent of the impact. I mean, almost no one was traveling. We're an organization that helps all of you travel, as well as we also have a significant amount of business travelers as well when you're not basically on your family holidays. It had a huge impact right the way across our industry, around our commercial partnerships, everything that we do. It was quite extraordinary. Imagine this, if you're Coca-Cola, and other drinks are available, by the way, but imagine one day if you woke up and actually the world had lost its sense of thirst. That's exactly what it was like for us when it came down to travel. We're a strong and stable company, but at the same time as well, it did have a massive impact. To give you a sense of how much impact across the travel industry, $2.1 trillion between 20 and 21 were lost in terms of revenue. That's massive. And again, it's nothing more complicated than less travel means fewer bookings means less revenue. But we were really under a point of crisis. Pressure mounted. If you can imagine being in the eye of the storm, we had customers that wanted to reschedule, get a refund. People were literally trapped all over the world, wanting to get back to loved ones. And it was our frontline staff that faced into that, at times bore the brunt of it, and it really became the heroes of our business around doing what they did best. And if you start thinking about every single company or player in the travel industry, every single person was trying to really negotiate hard things like a change in regulation. Regulation was changing almost every single day. It was nuts. And I don't know about you, but it was really kind of difficult for all of us as individuals to keep up with what we could and couldn't do during the height of the pandemic, let alone from a company policy perspective. Then we all found ourselves working from home, didn't we? And I just think that people changed their values and perspectives around what work was all about. The work that we did, why we worked and where we worked. I think people changed, I think from a global perspective, their expectations around what that looked like for them. The impact as well really focused upon our world of work, and as talent professionals, it is really galling to kind of understand that when we start thinking about what was the impact around jobs lost during the years of 2019 to 2020, 62 million jobs were lost across that industry. That's something else, isn't it? You know, people really re-evaluated, I think, what the world of work was all about for them. And with all new ways of working, I think came a very different expectation around where can I work, what do I want to be doing? And we at Expedia Group, like a number of other companies, faced really extraordinary attrition. I think we faced three massive things all at the same time, the perfect storm in many respects. I think we faced a really big challenge on revenue. We faced a massive challenge on customer uncertainty, a challenging time for talent, for sure, around retention calls. And I think you might be asking yourself, so where on earth did we find the opportunity in all of that? And I think it goes something like this. How many times have you sat down at work and thought to yourselves, you know what, there's this massive problem or opportunity over here, but we're never going to get to it because, you know, we're just really busy. I sat in front of Lars yesterday in his presentation. He talks about the busyness of HR people. We can make ourselves pretty busy, can't we? And at the best of times, I think that often those really big challenges are put into the background. And for us, the pandemic had a bit of a magic moment. It was just one piece of grace that said, take time, take stock, think about it, and be intentional. And so that was our opportunity to really think about some of those big things that we wanted to address. Knowing that, I think that if we started to think about the future of the company, that was definitely our chance to start building it as well. We took the decision that we kind of really wanted to rebuild and not repair. And this photo is really interesting because for those of you familiar with Seattle and where our brand new global HQ campus is based, it's down on Elliott Bay, and this was a building site. It is an amazing campus by anybody's standards. That campus was finished 3 months before lockdown kicked in and COVID started. And there's never an ideal time, is there? So again, there's a choice. Do we get all doom and gloom about reminiscing about the opportunity and the timing, or do we get up and go after what's next? We chose the latter. Let me tell you a little bit more about who we are. We're a business that has around 14,000 employees across the globe. And what we're in business to do is to make sure that, okay, our travel brands and our travel platform make a really big difference to the world of travel. But one thing that we do know is that if we don't have people rooted in the same values and the same common criteria that brings us all together, we're going to be spending a lot of time chasing our tails if you can imagine having that global business as complex as it can be. And I'm sure you can all relate to that around the size and scale of your own businesses as well. But we took this as our big chance to tackle some of those opportunities better on and rebuild the company in a much more unified and brought together way. We asked ourselves the question, what will it take to change? We do a lot across our customer groups. Our technology platform is something that we took to market for the first time. We call it Open World in LA around this really interesting opportunity to make the world of travel more extensible so that hotels, even countries, tourism boards can help to empower their own attractiveness when it comes to how they also make money and revenue as well. Airlines track destination numbers. You know, we optimize a lot of the technology behind what goes on behind the scenes. So if we're serious about really kind of unlocking all of that diversity of skill and passion and experience, we've got to really kind of ask ourselves the question, what is it that brings us all together? Fundamentally, we believe that travel is a force for good. I work for Expedia Group because I believe in travel. I think that travel, certainly in my life to date, It's really helped me to appreciate a sense of perspective around what it's meant to me and my life. And I'd like to think that travel makes us all better versions of ourselves. Sounds a bit utopian, doesn't it? A little bit far-flung, but let me just say this. I think that it also helps to really kind of strengthen connections, broaden horizons, and bridge some of those divides. And I think as a company, if we're going to make all of this real, what we've got to really think about is, what are we doing to make it real around tangible practice and action? So it's less about some of the nice words, and instead, there's some really nice tangible things that we're doing around bringing it all alive. So when it comes to talent, on top of everything that we've talked about, we then get this wave called the Great Resignation. You're thinking, my goodness, what else is going to be going on now? We took that moment to really disrupt the definition of the Great Resignation. Can you all remember how much media hype there was around stirring the pot about the Great Resignation? You think, my goodness, this is going to be worse than a zombie apocalypse when the time comes. And in actual fact, most of us got by. It was a tough time, wasn't it? But we took the opportunity to start thinking about, okay, let's stop talking about the Great Resignation. Instead, let's take all of that negative energy and really kind of different perspective and convert that into something that makes a big difference. We talk instead about the great attraction. And I think sometimes inverting things, as illogical as that seems, often gives a really interesting path forward. And I think if we want people to have a different relationship with work, we've got to start thinking about what that means around it being a different kind of experience. We are now really focused in on building ourselves a great technology company. And we're finding our focus around moving on from possibly where we've been in the recent past, around being associated with an online travel platform. We still are, but definitely not a travel agent or a travel product developer. I think that some of the talent that we've been able to hire over the last 18 months from tier 1 technology organizations really could have made sure that we're making a tangible difference around. We're bringing in that skill set to make sure that Expedia Group is a technology-first organization. And we've got to be honest, the type of talent that is going to be making a massive difference hasn't always seen Expedia Group as their career destination of choice. So we've had to do quite a bit of reinvention and repositioning around who we are and kind of what we offer, so that people do see us a bit differently. Quite simply, we want to build a more open world for travelers, and that is really at the heart of our employee value proposition. I think if we can get that right, we can create massive opportunities for people to connect and learn more with one another. And I think we want people to be inspired, not just about kind of what we do, but also by around not just the words, but what happens on the ground, again, in terms of actions. We've got to make sure that they speak considerably louder than the words, which is why when we start thinking about the world of our customer and the world of our candidates, these two things are really inextricably linked. I'm sure we all know that, don't we, around the benefits of looking at our candidates in that kind of way. But we've got to be developing experiences and products and features that ultimately make customer journeys better. Well, why aren't we doing that for candidates? Why aren't we doing that for employees? So that was part of our pivot around kind of what we've been focused upon around making sure that that happens. And I think it has a profound effect on some of the people that we've hired. It gives them a real singular purpose around what they find actionable and what they feel really great about. When we start thinking about people coming together in a different kind of way, what we've tried to do around our company structure is literally to remove silos between some of our brands and teams. And we've actually got a single group of people that now drive decisions across all of our brands. And it's unlocked some, I think, of the most exciting work that we've done in the brand space. You've probably seen what was, to start with, the Super Bowl advert. Ewan McGregor. I call it the stuff advert, because he really kind of, in that advert, is talking about what is the value of accruing all of this material stuff in our lives if we can't get to the end of that and think about some of the experiences that we've had. It's quite a philosophical elevation point, but it's certainly something that works for us when it comes down to connecting that purpose. We've also set a really clear vision, and I want to be kind of very clear about this. Our tech platform, which is called Open World, is all about trying to really power the travel industry. And we do so actually by enabling some of our customer partners to buy into that tech travel platform so that they can utilize that for their own purposes. And I think when we actively have an open collaborative approach, what we really invite is that open innovation across all of those travel players, because when, frankly, our travelers win, we all win. And we kind of understood that truth coming out of the pandemic. Expedia Group, let's talk a little bit about candidates and offering the chance to do something unique. We talk a little bit about transformative experiences, not least through some of the tech that we want to enable. But this is all about by travellers and for travellers. And that, I think, is a connection that we see loud and clear. And we need to be really clear around what we ask people to do in the world of work so that they can get, I think, some of the really nice things we've talked about, 65,000 feet, and connect that in with the day-to-day opportunities and problems and really big picture things that they're going after to try and crack and solve. I want to be very specific about something that we have introduced in our hiring process that helps to make a difference. So if we want to put some of our candidates first in the same way that we've put customers first, we need to kind of understand, we need to change how we hire. Our talent champions are a group of senior leaders inside Expedia Group that really care about hiring. And their role is to challenge and to really provoke the hiring manager whenever they're hiring. They've got a right to have a really good nudge and a really good provocative view around what is that job description all about? Is that future-proofing what Expedia Group needs? Their role is to make sure that interviewers are remaining really deadly focused on those killer points of inquiry with a candidate. They're driving out bias, and they're making sure that every single hiring decision counts. And as far as that part's concerned, it's really important around what talent champions really kind of bring to the table. They're really being used to brief our hiring community around the expectations of each of our roles. And I think they get some huge kudos from that, because they're not just showing up to enhance hiring decisions in their own part of the business. They're really kind of representing their Expedia Group talent t-shirt. Not that they literally have Expedia Group talent t-shirts, but they enjoy having that role for the better of the enterprise. When leadership hiring takes place like that, literally, I think we can make a difference one job at a time with the importance of hiring. So to share some of the things that we've learned as far as summary goes, I think every hiring decision counts. At the height of the pandemic, and I'm sure you can all remember this, but there were really big instances where every single role that was created had to be triaged by probably the following: a direct report to the CEO, the CFO, a CHRO for that particular business, and your head of TA. And coming through those days and kind of remembering, wow, that was the process that we had to validate the business criticality of those roles. You start thinking about now, hiring is still a privilege. And I think that's a mindset that I think is a really healthy one to have. Every single role that we hire for is a privilege to hire. This one, I think, is the most fundamental insight that we had. And it wasn't just based off of civil unrest, not least in the United States, but during the pandemic, we made a massive commitment to diversity hiring. We wanted to be big and bold and to make an accountable statement around what that looks like within our hiring practices. And it goes something like this. Every single year in the United States when we hire, 25% of that talent every year will come from underrepresented identities around race and ethnic groups. And by 2025, we want to make sure that 50% of women are in all roles at all levels in the company. And I think when we get to that point, it's going to be a massive point of optimization. I think we'll be a lot more relevant to our consumer base. And at the same time as well, we all kind of get the message that this is morally the right thing to do. Our hiring culture needs to be really open. We talked a little bit before about talent champions, but what they're really trying to do is to challenge bias and some of those incredible human decisions and instincts and thoughts that can kind of get in the way. But I think that when our hiring is open, that's the point whereby, again, we can be very deliberate around the quality of those hiring decisions. Our talent champions know that actually culture does eat strategy for breakfast, for lunch, and for dinner. And I think when it comes down to them seeing what is this all about, they don't see hiring as a process. They don't believe it's some sort of utility. They want to elevate that into being a significant experience that really kind of lights up, I think, the world of travel and what that looks like from a candidate's perspective. Their mission is absolutely to raise the bar and to drive out some of that bias. And I think critically, their job is to make sure of the following, that whatever a hiring manager wants is what Expedia Group needs. And they're representing something bigger picture, something collective there. We've got to crack, I think, the turning point. And that's around recognizing that when we're in the depths of the pandemic, we were not as attractive as we should be. And I think we talked a little bit before about if we want to be an established technology provider and a player, we've got to be really thinking about how is it we're reinventing our employer brand and our employee value proposition. And you might be thinking, well, at the height of the pandemic, was that the right instinctive thing to be doing around investing in that? And I think we all believed that we would come out of it. And I think what are the seeds that had to be planted to make sure that when we did arrive out of those dark mists of terrible times, that we had some really good things to look forward to and that we were on the front foot as well. Critical that we're building Expedia Group as a great place to work. There's 4 things that I think we need to get right. First of all, travel has meaning. And I think if there's only one thing you walk away with today from listening to me is all around the purpose behind travel. And I think for that to be really effective in Expedia Group, we've got to be making sure that travel actually means something to every single Expedian around what they care about and what they do. If we get that right, I think we can bring joy to millions around their travel experience. We talked a little bit about transformative tech. That's all about bringing together all of the things that you value that maybe isn't there today around the holistic experience of a trip, when we make sure it's all integrated and brought together. It's not about renting more cars or selling more plane tickets. It's about helping to define the future of travel. Career journeys is absolutely significant. We've got to believe that we're not bringing people just into the organization to that one role, even with the help of those talent champions. We've made a significant investment in something that we call EG Careers, which is our talent marketplace. It's a one-stop shop that basically brings together employees for opportunities around mentoring, gigs, experience, and the next internal move in the company as well. And that is a play that we've gotten from our approach to customers. If that's what they're asking us to do in terms of bringing together their whole world of travel in an app and in one place, why can't we do that for our internal employees as well? And finally, a little bit about the role that our employees play here. I've always known this to be the case, but wherever you are, I think employees are your best brand ambassadors. And we've launched a program called Amplify. And EG Amplify is all about employees doing small things that make a big difference with social media content, so that every single day, a little habit helps to share something that Expedia Group is doing. It might put forward a story around what it's really kind of like to work in Expedia Group now as opposed to then. And every single piece of that brand building activity makes a big difference. And we've been kind of blown away and really humbled by some of that content and some of that sharing as we look to scale up. We have an aim of getting the participation rates up to 15% of our organisation with Amplify, and we're well on the way to achieving that. So, I just want to leave you just with one thing around the power of purpose. I think it's really easy sometimes to get dragged down in the world of data and metrics and numbers. And I know that TA is a very data-orientated thing to be able to do and discipline to get involved in delivering with our organisations. But at the same time as well, we've got to take that time out to really inspire people at the same time as well. I think if we can change the way that we work, I think we will be able to be a true purpose-led business as well as a technology-first business as well. And I think our purpose, quite simply, is to exist to strengthen connections, to broaden horizons and bridge divides. And I think when we get that part right, that definitely is the point where employees, I think, can rally behind some of those things. Guess what? I think if we can do all of those things, I think we'll become a really attractive employer. And one day, that may even be attractive for some of you here as well today. Who knows? So a really big thank you from me. Thank you very much for the stage and a chance to tell you a story about Expedia Group in terms of its journey through the pandemic, some of the decisions that we took, and where we are now. Appreciate it. Thank you.